Welcome to the Clark Ford Instant Analysis. Chase Parham, Neal McCready here. Mississippi State wins 35-3 in the Egg Bowl. The trophy going back to Starkville. Really not going to focus a lot on the game, though, as Neal's column leads off. The clock starts now for Matt Luke to put his stamp on the program. He gets a chance to do that here on a night that was, frankly, a pretty ugly look for Ole Miss from a score standpoint and a pretty ugly look from the rivalry in general, Neal. As we kind of dive into this a little bit, State dominated the game in the ways that most of us thought they would probably do from the line of scrimmages. From a physicality standpoint, Ole Miss clearly sees where it must improve in short order. And let's start with kind of the coaching stuff. And we know that that's where rumors are now. We know that quickly Matt's got to make those decisions. Were you able to kind of glean anything from post-game there?
Well, I asked Matt Luke, do you anticipate staff changes, and if so, to what extent? He chose not to answer that question tonight. He wanted to keep the focus on the seniors and that kind of thing. Listening to Wesley McGriff, if Wesley McGriff is gone, he doesn't know it. He was very emphatic about getting out on the recruiting trail as quickly as possible, focusing on recruiting, starting in the morning. He said we have to have more players. It was really the first time that he acknowledged that there just simply was a talent deficiency. There was a speed deficiency. There was a strength deficiency with that defense. And then, I asked Phil Longo specifically, do you anticipate being back at Ole Miss next year? And he said he did. He said he and his family love Oxford. He made repeated references to coaching Matt Corral, to getting out on the recruiting trail, that kind of thing. So, again, I know you hear a lot of things. I hear a lot of things. I don't know. I told someone today, and I didn't mean it as an insult to a source, but I've heard so many conflicting things that at this point I don't really know what I believe. I don't know what I don't believe. It's hard for me to imagine that what we just witnessed is not going to result in change. I think it clearly is going to result in change. You have been skeptical, to your everlasting credit, all season long about the theory of sweeping change. You've said, I just don't think it's going to happen. And I have a suspicion you're right. I don't know. We have some sources that say 6, 7 people gone, and other sources that say it's going to be minimal change, that he's going to stand with this staff and that he's going to go out on the recruiting trail and that he thinks it's all a matter of putting his stamp on the program through recruiting. And I think, and I wrote this in my column, I think from his standpoint, that is one hell of a gamble. But look, it's his program, it's his salary, it's his job, and decisions have consequences. And he's about to go through a period starting in the morning or starting right now that he's got a lot of decisions to make, and those decisions, whether they're positive or negative, there will be consequences one way or the other.
So at the end of the third quarter, we have a fight on the field. We've got another skirmish there at the end of the game as well when it's over. And this is kind of interesting to me because I was writing there at the end of the game about how Mullen's gone, Freeze is gone, about how leading into tonight, both coaches seemed to want to minimize it to some extent. They were not privy to the main parts of this throughout, other than obviously Matt being on the staff. AJ's still around, Leo's still around, but a lot of the emotional charge was gone. And I don't know really where this is going from now. This thing starts with Jonathan Abram throwing a punch at A.J. Brown. You had multiple fights all over the field and everything. The entire teams on both of them had unsportsmanlike conduct penalties. But point being, Matt minimized it again afterwards, said he's trying to move on, barring something crazy happening. Moorhead gives a lot more of a pointed quote. Talks about not taking anybody's shit, basically, is what he said. I think that was a pretty direct quote. Is it possible here that this thing is a continuation as Moorhead sort of gets his first taste of it? They plant a flag at midfield, and we're just continuing this process as we move forward?
Yeah, I think the rivalry's ugly. I've said that for years now. I don't think it's a good look. I covered Alabama-Auburn. We talked about this on the podcast 11 times, 12 times, I don't know, a bunch. I never saw anything like this. And in this rivalry, it seems like it happens every year. Not to that extent that we saw just then, but that it's always on the cusp of that. I don't know who's to blame, whether everyone's to blame, whether one side's to blame. I tweeted this today, and, of course, it got Mississippi State people all worked up. And most Ole Miss people, I think, agreed with me. Not all, because some people pushed back, and a few people said they're going to cancel and stuff like that. So it happens. The SEC, back in 2013, dropped the ball. And then the SEC in 2016 absolutely blew the ball up. And this rivalry is out of control. Truthfully, and I don't mean this as a hot take, it's never going to happen. what this rivalry needs is a couple years off. It needs a shuffle. They're never going to do that. They're going to play. It's must-watch television now. I'll give them that. People will watch the game next season in Starkville, watching to see if they have another brawl. It's just not a good look. I thought, I don't know how else I can say that. I thought it was a distasteful look. A lot of people will disagree. I don't think that's something that for either program is going to be something that they're really going to want to recruit to, that they're really going to want to talk about. At some point, people have to – cooler heads have to prevail, but there's a lot of emotion in this field. There's no question that Ole Miss feels like Mississippi State behind the scenes played a role in the NCAA thing, because Mississippi State behind the scenes did play a role in the thing. And there's no doubt on the other side that Mississippi State feels like Ole Miss cheated in a way that other programs in the league don't. There's just a tremendous amount of consternation between the two programs, and you see it manifest itself on the field year after year.
That's it for the 2018 season. Ole Miss finishes 5-7, 1-7 in the SEC, 0-8 against the spread. The third Power 5 team since 2005 to be 0-8 against the spread in conference play. The other two fired their head coaches. That's likely not happening here. But just a little note as we close this instant analysis: Neal McCready, Chase Parham, the Clark Ford instant analysis.